Theo checks his savings account balance for what is probably the 100th time this year. $14,000. Built slowly, deliberately, over 2 years, ever since he finally set up that automatic transfer instead of waiting for a calmer month that was never coming. He feels genuinely proud of that number. He also feels completely stuck because somewhere along the way, invest became a word that lives in the same mental folder as eventually and someday, not because he's scared of investing exactly, but because nobody ever showed him the actual sequence of decisions that gets you from a savings account to an investment account. Here's what almost nobody tells you clearly. Investing isn't one big decision. It's not a leap you take when you finally feel ready. It's a specific, ordered sequence of checkpoints, and once you can see the order, am I ready to invest, stops being a scary, vague question and becomes a simple, factual one. Which stage are you actually on right now? By the end of this video, you're going to have the exact step-by-step path from saving to investing in order, with a clear signal for when you're ready to move from each stage to the next. No more wondering, just a map. Let's start with the concept underneath this. Most people's confusion about investing isn't really about investing at all. It's about sequencing. They've heard fragments. Max your 401k, pay off debt first, build an emergency fund. Index funds are simple, all true, all useful, and all completely disconnected from each other in most people's heads. Nobody hands you the order. So people either freeze, waiting to feel ready, or they skip around, unevenly investing before they have a safety net, or hoarding cash, years past the point it made sense to. The fix isn't more information, it's the correct order. So here are the 6 stages in the exact sequence they're meant to happen. Notice that each one has a specific, checkable signal for when you're done with it and ready to move to the next. Stage 1. The starter emergency fund. Before any investing conversation even starts, you need a small buffer, not the full emergency fund yet, just enough to cover 1 or 2 unexpected expenses without reaching for a credit card, somewhere around $1,000. Or 1 month of essential expenses, whichever you hit first. The signal that you're done with this stage isn't a specific number matching someone else's rule. It's the simple fact that a flat tire or a broken laptop wouldn't derail you financially. Theo hit this stage in his first 4 months of saving, and it changed almost nothing about his daily life, which is exactly the point this stage exists quietly, in the background, as insurance against small chaos. Stage 2. High-interest debt elimination. This is the stage most people want to skip, because paying off debt doesn't feel like progress the way watching an investment account grow does. But here's the math that makes this non-negotiable. If you're carrying debt at 22% interest, no reasonable investment return beats guaranteed 22% savings from paying it off. This isn't a psychological argument. It's arithmetic. The signal you're done with this stage is specific and binary. Any debt above roughly 7 or 8% interest is gone. Lower interest debt, like some mortgages or federal student loans, can often coexist with investing, but high interest debt should always come before it. Stage 3. Capturing the full employer match. If your employer offers any match on retirement contributions, this stage comes before anything else investment related, including your full emergency fund, because an employer match is an immediate, guaranteed return that nothing else can compete with. Commonly 50 to 100% on the matched amount, instantly. The signal here is simple. Are you contributing at least enough to get the entire match, not a partial amount out of caution? Theo had been contributing 3% when his employer matched up to 6%, leaving 3% of guaranteed free money on the table every single paycheck, simply because nobody had explained that this stage takes priority even before the emergency fund is fully built out. Stage 4. The full emergency fund. Now, and only now, you build the complete buffer, typically 3 to 6 months of essential expenses, sitting in something accessible and boring, like a high-yield savings account. The signal you're ready to move past this stage is straightforward. If you lost your income tomorrow, you could cover your actual necessities for that full window without touching a credit card or an investment account. This is the last stage before real investing begins, and it exists specifically so that a market downturn or a job loss never forces you to sell investments at the worst possible moment. Let's pause here and look at Malik, a case that shows exactly what happens when this stage gets skipped. Malik got excited early, opened a brokerage account after only 2 months of saving, and started investing aggressively before building any real buffer. 8 months later, His car needed a repair he couldn't otherwise cover, right in the middle of a market dip. He had to sell investments at a loss, not because his investment choices were bad, but because he had no buffer standing between an ordinary expense and his portfolio. The emergency fund isn't about being cautious for its own sake. It's specifically what prevents you from being forced to make an investing decision at the worst possible moment, for reasons that have nothing to do with investing at all. Stage 5. Choosing your account type. This is the stage that confuses people most, because the options, a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, a taxable brokerage account, and HSA, if you're eligible, all sound like they require specialized expertise to choose between. Here's the simplified signal. If you expect to be in a similar or higher tax bracket in retirement, a Roth IRA is usually the sensible default. If your employer offers a match beyond your 401k and you're eligible for an HSA, that's often the single most tax-advantaged account available, even though it's technically a health account. And a taxable brokerage account exists for anything beyond what tax-advantaged accounts allow, with no restrictions on withdrawal timing. You don't need to become a tax expert to move past this stage. You need to pick the account that matches your situation using this simplified default logic and adjust later if your circumstances change. Stage 6. Your first allocation decision, and then automation. This is the stage people often imagine as the hardest, and it's actually the simplest, because the sensible default here is deliberately boring. A low-cost, broadly diversified index fund automatically contributed to on a recurring schedule. Not because sophisticated strategies don't exist, but because for the vast majority of people at this stage, the diversified, automated, low-cost approach outperforms attempts at picking individual investments, specifically because it removes the ongoing decision-making that tends to introduce emotional, poorly timed choices. The signal that you've completed this final stage is simple. Money moves automatically, on schedule, into a diversified position, without requiring an active decision from you every time. Notice something about all 6 stages. Each one has a specific, checkable signal, not a feeling. You don't need to feel ready. For stage 2, you check whether high-interest debt still exists. You don't need to feel confident about stage 5. You check your expected tax bracket and eligibility. The entire path was designed to remove the vague, intimidating feeling of, is this the right time to invest? And replace it with a simple, factual checklist you can walk through in order. None of this makes Theo, or Malik, or anyone else slow or behind. Most people have never seen this sequence laid out in order, which means most people are either stuck at a stage without realizing it or have accidentally skipped one without knowing the specific risk that creates. This is an information sequencing problem, not a character problem. And sequencing problems are the easiest kind to fix, because once you see the correct order, you simply follow it. So here's the condensed path, if you want the fast version. 1. Build a small starter buffer. 2. Eliminate any high-interest debt. 3. Capture your full employer match. 4. Complete your full emergency fund. 5. Choose your account type based on your tax situation and eligibility. 6. Automate a diversified contribution and stop actively deciding every month. If you're listening to this and trying to place yourself, here's the fastest way to check. Work through the stages in order, and stop at the first one where the answer isn't clearly yes. Done. That's your actual current stage, not the stage that feels exciting, not the stage your friend is on, the one where the sequence itself says you are. Theo's actual next move, once he mapped his own situation onto this path, turned out to be smaller than he expected. His starter buffer was done, his debt was already gone, but he was capturing only half his employer match, which meant his real next action wasn't opening a brokerage account at all. It was going back to HR and adjusting one number in his contribution percentage. The path he needed had already been half built. He just hadn't seen it clearly enough to notice where he actually stood. That's the real value of seeing the stages in order. It stops the vague, anxious question of, should I be investing by now? And replaces it with something almost boring in its simplicity. A specific, checkable next action, sitting exactly where the sequence says it should be. You don't need to feel ready to invest. You need to know which stage you're actually standing on. And now that you can see the whole path laid out in order, that's no longer a mystery. It's just the next box to check.